back. You're with us on Overdrive. The Hyundai Venue has been updated and it is now starting at 7.89 lakh rupees. It comes with fresh styling and new safety features, level 2 ADAS. Tuin will bring you all the details.
Now, the Venue has been quite a successful sub-4-meter SUV, but it's never quite dominated its segment in the way that the Creta has. But now we have the second generation model. It's been significantly changed. So can it really shake things up in this segment? Let's find out. The Venue is now 30 mm wider, but the oversized lighting elements, wide grille and flared panels make it look much more substantial than before. So you feel like you're looking at a car from a segment higher when you see it head on. Now, the previous Venue looked quite compact, especially when you saw it in profile, but now Hyundai has done a lot of work, it seems like, to make it look more like an SUV. The 48 mm increase in height helps. You have this nice quarter glass, which I quite like. The wheelbase has grown by 20 mm, and you also have that decent 195 mm of ground clearance. Unlike the general trend in this segment, the new Hyundai Venue continues with 16-inch wheels. They can look a bit small, but there are benefits to this, as we will see later. The rear is now quite a bit more aggressive than before. The overall theme has been retained with the edge pattern lighting, but the chunky bumpers and smart details stand out, like the encased Venue logo and the smartly integrated reversing lamps. Now, with the new Venue, boot space has gone up by 25 litres to 375 litres. It's still not the best in this segment, but as you can see, it's quite useful. You can pack a family's worth of luggage quite easily, and that's helped by this quite deep floor. Yes, that makes the sill quite high, so putting up a bag is a bit of a hassle, but you can really free up space. You have a 60-40 split arrangement, so that really does help. Now, one of the things that Hyundai does really well is give you the impression that you're in something that's much more expensive than it actually is, and the Venue is another great example of this. Now, with the last Creta, we felt like, Hyundai sort of cut corners a little bit, but here they're back on form. And I really quite like the kind of textures and finishes that have been used. For example, you have this kind of brushed rubberized plastic here, this kind of textured architectural sort of patterns here. And I generally like the design. It's quite simple, but still looks premium and upmarket with that H pattern sort of design to it. And everything sort of falls to hand very easily. Now, it's great that Hyundai has given us actual tactile buttons for the entire climate control system. But we hope that they don't do what they did with the Creta and remove this through the life of the car and give us a touch panel again. But anyway, you have rotary knobs, toggle switches, so everything is done pretty well. And I also like how this screen has been arranged. It's not too intrusive. Again, it gives you that very modern, slightly minimal theme, but it's again executed very well. And I also must say that for a car in this segment, this is right at the top in terms of the tactile feel that you get from the controls. So I like these new stocks. They have got a nice weight to it, especially these metallic paddle shifters and these buttons on this new steering wheel. Again, you will remember this from cars like the Ioniq with that Morse code Hyundai logo here. And yeah, it's very well designed. I think it falls to hand very easily. The curved infotainment panel fits right into this theme with its larger 12.3-inch screens. They now get Hyundai's newest interface. You have a fully digital instrument cluster now. It's easy to read and navigate through menus with large fonts and fluid graphics. The touchscreen gets a widget and tile theme that looks more modern. It too seems to have become responsive and is easy to get used to. You have more connected features added as well. Most importantly, you finally get wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Now, another smart touch is how Hyundai has managed to extract space in this cabin. Now, while the car is about 30 mm wider, the actual track width hasn't gone up compared to the last gen model. But you see how this dash has been pushed back. It's only about this wide, and similarly how slim these door panels are. So in the earlier Venue, you would always sort of hit your elbow on the door sill or the door pad. That doesn't happen anymore, at least for me. I think that's a big step up, and it generally comes with that roomy feeling. And I also must say that practicality is good. I have a very large and easy to access wireless sort of pad here. This space is quite usable, especially with the LED, so you can even put a phone here. There's a small space here. I really like the arrangement of these Type-C chargers where you can switch between charging and connecting to the infotainment. And this setup here, the cup holders are quite big, and I can also put my phone here, which is smart. And then of course you have a small space here, not the most useful, but it's there. and even the door cards are quite large. Now, some of the things that I don't like in this cabin, I don't get fully powered seats. I mean, I think that is something that's a bit missing. I don't want to use the manual height adjustment, especially on the move. And I also don't get telescopic steering adjustment. Here are the features you get with the Venue. Safety too has been improved with level 2 ADAS now being added. It is also expected that the improvements to the structure will get the Venue a 5-star safety rating. Now you realize that Hyundai is sort of modeling the Venue after the Creta from the rear seat, because the shape of the rear seat will immediately remind you of the Creta if you're familiar with it. So while you have a bit more bolstering and cushioning than what we've seen in Hyundai cars before, and I must say that it worked. The thigh support is pretty good, especially here, considering what it was, it's pretty good. And you also have a good deal of bolstering in your sides, which Hyundai cars, at least from in this price point, have not had before, and I really quite like it. But having said that, the base is also quite flat, so 3 abreast here, especially if one of them is a small person, is quite possible. And yeah, of course, it's not as big as some of the other cars in the segment, but you will sort of manage. Now, one of the biggest complaints with the previous Venue was its rear seat space, and Hyundai has tried to address it. Yes, by no means is this the most spacious car in the cabin, but it's also not especially tight like how the earlier car was. So that 20 mm wheelbase that has gone up, you notice that for me, I'm about 5'7", 5'8", the seat is set to my driving position. I have a good deal of knee room and I have a good amount of space to sort of tuck my feet in. Yes, these rails kind of get in the way, but the seat being placed high helps. And of course, many of you may not like this, but you only get a single pane sunroof, but what that does mean is that you have massive headroom. Just look at the kind of headroom I have. And then of course Hyundai does those small touches which really uplift the kind of feeling that you have in the cabin. And you notice that with these sunshades, the fact that this can actually recline, and you have the quite regular AC vents and Type-C chargers. Now, one thing that Hyundai has done, which I'm not the most fond of, is that while they have scooped out the seat back for more space, there's no real seat pockets. And also the door bins are especially small. There's just enough for one bottle. So in the back, there is going to be a little bit of an issue with putting stuff.
Well, Hyundai Venue now comes with an automatic diesel variant. After this very short break, we'll tell you whether this is what makes a big difference on our Indian roads. Stay with us, you're watching Overdrive. Welcome back, you're with us on Overdrive. The new Venue continues with its same set of engines, a petrol, turbo petrol as well as a diesel, but now it gets a diesel automatic variant. Let's find out whether it makes a whole lot of difference on our Indian roads.
The second gen Hyundai Venue continues with the same engine options as before. So the base engine is the 1.2 litre naturally aspirated motor with 83 PS and 115 Nm. But the version we spent most time with was the 1 litre turbo with 120 PS and 172 Nm paired with the DCT. We also briefly drove the new 1.5 litre diesel torque converter combo that makes 115 PS and 250 Nm. When you start driving the Venue, the first thing you notice is that you feel like you're in an SUV a lot more than earlier. So you have that commanding seating position and that bonnet kind of flows out in front of you. You can see it. So that looks great. The earlier Venue didn't quite do that. And then you also have the seats. I think they're especially comfortable. They give you a lot of support for your thighs. They're cushioned just right. So we spent a couple of hours now driving the Venue and we're not very tired. Now this is the 1 litre turbo 3-cylinder. Now the engine itself hasn't changed all that much, at least on paper. And it's paired with that 7-speed DCT. This drivetrain feels largely familiar, but you do notice minor improvements in the way that it's become more linear and quieter. It always had great NVH for a 3-cylinder, but that seems to have been improved. The DCT2 is functional like it has been earlier. It works seamlessly in everyday driving, but doesn't like to give you heavy, high RPM shifts. So it's a very calm experience. And also I think it's generally become more linear. So you always seem to have power on tap. There's a lot less hesitation. Now even the DCT at low speeds or in lower gears is not struggling too much to pick the right gear. So yeah, that kind of neutral, easy driving demeanor that the Venue has, that's sort of been improved upon. This 1 litre engine was never the most exciting, but it was always functional and effective, and that sense continues. So you have a fairly clean, wide power band, which if you're driving calmly, you will never feel like you're being interrupted in your progress, which I think is great. in the higher reaches of the rev band, you do wish there was a bit more excitement, especially since you bought a turbo petrol, and there are quite a few exciting engines in the segment now. Maybe you wish for that a little bit, but again, for most of you, that will probably not be a deal breaker.
As for the diesel auto variant, it's a bit less peppy off the line than the turbo petrol, but very soon you have that flat diesel torque advantage going for you. It has that solid confident pull and feels more potent when cruising, especially during overtaking. The torque converter can't quite match the DCT in its seamlessness, but it is a responsive unit. It doesn't slur too much and is helped by the added torque of the motor. You get drive modes in both, which change engine and gearbox responses, and the traction modes also tweak the ESC to give you more grip on loose surfaces.
Now, the one thing that Hyundai has done that I really appreciate is the way it's tuned this car's ride and handling. Now, this car with that new architecture has been strengthened a lot, and it really shows in the way it's moving on the road. You feel like you're in something more substantial, more stable, better grounded, and it shows across scenarios. So over broken patches and bad roads, you have this solid feel. You have a great ride quality. Hyundai has not gone with the norm and fitted extremely large wheels on a small SUV like this. You still get 16-inch wheels. And that combined with the sort of reworking that they've done of the suspension, the slightly longer wheelbase. The Venue seems quite adept at our road conditions, so you notice that over broken patches, it absorbs a lot of it. Unless things get really bad where you're thrown around a lot, you have that kind of layer of cushioning between you and the road. And I also really like that the high-speed stability has grown significantly over the last car. The last Venue was not the most stable at high speeds, but here it feels steady and comfortable and confident.
With the diesel and its added heft, there is a touch more springiness to the ride. So while it is still good, you do notice more vertical movement over uneven surfaces in this variant over the turbo petrol. The diesel also does feel a bit more nose heavy than the petrol around corners.
So if you like doing long distance driving, then the Venue is now a great choice for you. Now that does mean that, like I mentioned earlier, the Venue will not be for you if you're looking for a full-on enthusiast car. Now I do wish the steering was a bit more direct than it is. Yes, it's convenient, so in city traffic it's absolutely effortless to drive, as Hyundais have always been. But at higher speeds I do wish there was a bit more connection coming through the wheel, but otherwise you have that very, again, neutral kind of demeanor. So it doesn't roll too much, but it also doesn't feel especially well tied down or especially sharp around bends. But as something that will work every day for you without springing surprises, the Venue does the job. And I must say that given how comfortable the suspension is, this trade-off that Hyundai has made, I think, is quite smart and sort of works out for the Venue.
Priced at Rs 14.74 lakh for the petrol and 15.69 lakh for the diesel top-end variants, the Venue is a pricey proposition. This is exaggerated by the fact that it's still not the most spacious car in the segment and misses out on a couple of features. That being said, it feels a big step up from the last model with its more solid, comfortable driving demeanor and comes with a cabin ambience that's very close to the top of this segment. The good road presence helps its case too.
Well, that's it then from us on this week's edition of Overdrive. But remember, you can stay in touch with the team through our various social media platforms. You can write to us on YouTube as well. We'll see you next week. Until then, drive and ride safe.